Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Bakersfield Redux. I'm Em, and I'm your host. I'm super excited today to be able to chat with Vic and Vance Ulrich, who are the sons of Don Rich. Today, we're going to get into some interesting topics like their memories of their dad and what it truly meant for him to be a part of the Buckaroos. I'm so excited for us to enter this chapter of Bakersfield country music history together. I just first like to start by thanking you guys so much for being here today with me. I know that all the fans on the page are so excited just to hear from you guys and just to, have me be able to be here and talk to you guys about that. So I cannot wait to just get into some of this with you. So let's just go ahead and get started. One of the first questions that is on my list here that was sent in, how did your dad feel about fame?
You want to go? Go ahead.
Yeah, he was sort of indifferent, I think, to fame. I never had the impression that he was a famous person. I mean, although, we would see him on TV, it was sort of like normal to us at the time. We thought, oh, all dads must be on, TV and saying, hey, how can I be there and here at the same time when we were really little? He was like teasing us a little bit, but yeah, I mean, he was so down to earth. He wasn't sort of egotistical or anything like that. I mean, about fame, and he appreciated musicians' affirmation of him, but I don't think he felt like he was famous, really. I don't know, Vic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember as a kid watching the when he was first on Hee Haw. We had no sense of what that was, but I remember he wanted us. It was the first time he was ever on national TV, and not on the syndicated show or any of that stuff. And it was a big deal, big enough deal that we all sat on the couch and watched that. But beyond that, I think he was more interested in just being a player, and he was very professional about his craft. He practiced a lot at home, and he was very serious about his music, although he was kind of a jokester at home. He was very, very serious about his playing and about his craft. That's what my memory was as well.
But I remember we would be out, I don't know if we were with other band members or anything, but right. I remember the topic came up because he was recording some of his own stuff too. And he's just like, do you want to be a star? He's like, I don't want to be a star. Like, I don't want that. Buck's a star. I don't need all the stuff that comes with that. So I always thought that was pretty interesting to hear him say that.
And I always felt like he liked the band side of it. And it's hard to be a star. It's hard to be out front and not be a part of the band as well. I think the band sort of looked up to him as the leader. He was the longest serving member of the band. And I think that the guys looked to him. I remember LaWanda Lindsay, who was in one of the early bands, said that she would start her set by looking at my dad, and my dad would get everyone going. And I think it was that sort of teamwork dynamic that he really enjoyed being a part of. And that's the sense that I have from all the band members that we still interact with. Jim Shaw and Doyle Singer and Buddy and all those guys. I think that's one of the things that they talk about as well.
Right. And I can see that, from growing up listening to their music as well, that, I feel like a lot of people were endeared to your dad because of just how relatable he seemed and just how down to earth he was. And I know I shared with y'all, but I'll share with everyone else too. My mom grew up watching Hee Haw, and so it's just so special to me to be a part of this project because she grew up with him, relating to him and seeing that positive energy that he brought to a team. So I can see that that was just so relatable for so many people, and it's just so evident that so many people still today are inspired by that. And I just it's amazing to me. You see people say that, once you learn about your celebrities, you'll be disappointed. I don't think that anyone who could learn anything about your dad would be disappointed in anything about him. I feel like he was just as great a person, off the stage as he was, appearing and putting that image forward on the stage. So am I right in that assumption?
Yeah. What you see on TV, what I see on TV was the same exact person that we knew. It's very familiar, which is nice because we're lucky in that way. God smiled on us because we get a chance to interact with him. He died so long ago, but yet our kids can know a part of him and can know him as well through that. And that's the authentic him as well. You see him smiling, and the clips that you have on the site really show he was a kind of a silly guy, and he enjoyed, you can see that teasy sort of quality on the site as well. And that's who he was to us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's one clip you have in it. It's where he makes a mistake, and it's the reaction that he made when he made those mistakes, like, you know, spot on. It's just like, it's exactly how I was. Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. I love seeing that so much. You know, someone who has the amount of confidence in themselves that they are A, not afraid to just be themselves on stage, but B, they're not afraid to like own their mistakes and just make light of it. Because, you know, missing a note here and there, I'm a musician, so I know missing a note here and there is going to happen to the best of us. And I feel like he knew that's not going to diminish. That's not going to make anybody underestimate how much of a musician that he was. So he just owned that very, very confidently.
Yeah.
So another question that that they had sent in, some of the followers, what if any were the fortunes or misfortunes of being the sons of a famous person? I know you mentioned watching your dad on national TV and thinking that was totally normal, but were there any fortunes or misfortunes to that growing up?
You want to go?
I have a memory after they played the White House. I think it was in like kindergarten or something. And they brought home all this sort of White House memorabilia. And my kindergarten teacher was like, "Oh God, you know, look at all this." Like, I was just a little kid, you know. I didn't really get it. But I still have like a little pocket knife that's like LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, you know, that I and I mean, that was one of the things we used to do this. Show every year. Buck did it, Toys for Tots. So that was always sort of fun for us to go, and you'd have to pick out a toy for misfortunate kids or unfortunate kids. And so we go and do that every year. That was always fun. It was kind of weird though, because we weren't used to seeing outside of maybe like the Hart Park shows, like big crowds. We didn't go to a lot of the live shows when we were really young. So it was kind of cool to see all that stuff too.
Yeah, and I don't think we really didn't have a good sense of, we knew he was famous because you see him on TV, but we didn't really have a sense of his reach. You know, he died in 1974, and country music was clipping along pretty fast then, and he was part of the traditional country music sound, you know, the Bakersfield sound, more of a bar sound. And it moved past him, past that sound for a while after he died. And then we moved from Bakersfield to Lake Tahoe, and sort of, just wasn't cool for a while. It was cool among country music fans, traditional fans, but it wasn't something that people really were connected to. Our friends weren't. And it wasn't until college that we, I guess, revisited that he had some fame. I mean, I was telling Vance before the call that I remember we went to a Ventures concert when we were at San Diego State, right? Well, I remember hearing the names Noki Edwards and Simi Mosley, and they would come over to the house together sometimes. And I only remember it because they were these very odd names, right?
Yes.
And then later you find out, years later, after we saw them live and everything, that they were friends of Dad's, come over to the house and all that stuff. We didn't have any sense of that. And it wasn't until quite a bit later, I went to a concert with a local band in San Diego called the Derailers. And the guy I was with was a fan of theirs. And so we went and talked to them at one of their breaks. And they were, and my friend, trying to get their attention, mentioned that my dad played with Buck Owens. And I had no sense of that there was the kind of connection to musicians that Dad had until that show. And the guys were like blown away that we were there and that he was our dad and all that stuff. It was really cool. So that was probably the first time that you realize, oh wow, he's significant and he has pretty good reach. So he had a lot of friends in the industry, but you know, they're family friends. So you don't have a good sense of you know, who he really was professionally. So
he died so young, you know. It's, you know, just people, you know, he didn't have that. He had a great career and he did a lot of great things, but you know, it's crazy. I mean, Earl Ball, we talked to Earl Ball. I don't know if you know who he is, great piano player. He's a family friend, and he would come over and he'd say, like, anybody who knows their history about country music knows your dad. And we'd be like, it seemed unbelievable.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't to talking about Earl. Another time when I realized kind of where he was in the scheme of country music was Earl was Johnny Cash's piano player, and they would come up to Tahoe and play. Right, Johnny Cash was on that showroom tour. This is before the Garth Brooks phenomenon that kind of took over country music. So Johnny was really the biggest guy in country music at that time, and they played, and we couldn't. My wife and then my girlfriend, we couldn't get in the showroom, which is where we normally would be. Earl would get us seats in the showroom. We'd see the show from the audience. But he said, I can put you guys side stage if you want. So I didn't know what that meant. So I said, yeah, we'll sit side stage. So side stage for that show was 2 folding chairs between the curtains. And Johnny actually warmed his voice up, circling my wife and I. It was crazy. And so after the show, Johnny and June Carter, they were sweating and they were exhausted, and they were walking and taking the service elevator up to their rooms. And they came back. I thought they forgot something out of the dressing rooms, and we were just waiting there for Earl to come out. And we were going to get a late dinner.
Right.
And June Carter came back and said, "Hey, are you Don Rich's boy?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, we used to tour on the bus with your daddy for like 5-6 months out of the year when he was 18, 19, 20 years old. And, if we had more time, we could tell you stories of those days that would just, you'd think it's so much fun. But, they were tired and I was tired. And Johnny said, your daddy was a great picker and we all loved him and all that stuff. And what was weird to me about it was how genuine they were and how small the community was. It was like I was at a family reunion, and you have to say hello to this great aunt that you never met before and you might never meet again. But they felt it was important to come over and do the acknowledgement and do the pleasantries that occurred. And it gave me a glimpse into the life that he lived in that era on the buses and all that. And then later you see the movie, the Johnny Cash story that was the movie, and you're like, oh my gosh, he was on that bus, one of the bit players in that. So pretty cool.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. For me, it's one of those weird things where it gives you a sense of who he was professionally, and he was really well thought of. I don't think we ever doubted that, but it's just weird to hear people who are reverential to him that you wouldn't think would be. So we're really grateful.
Yes, I know that, I've heard so many people say that y'all's dad and Luther Perkins were 2 of the most influential country guitar players. And, I have so many friends who love Johnny Cash, and a lot of younger people like me know who he is. And, the people that Johnny Cash associated with, the people that Johnny Cash liked, the younger generations like as well. It's just a matter of getting that out there and just, letting them know that, these people were associated. This is who Johnny Cash held in high regards. And undoubtedly, Johnny Cash was one of the greatest people and one of the, biggest names in the country music industry at that time. So that story is really, really amazing. And it does just go to show that, people in the music industry, at least in that time period, did see and recognize and appreciate good talent when they heard it. I hope that is still the case today. Yeah,
it's pretty exciting. It's neat to, like I said, that was a really neat experience.
Right. That's just, I'm just blown away by that. I'm kind of at a loss for words. Like that's so amazing that they would just take the time to do that. I think about country musicians today. I think about musicians today in general, and I don't want to assume falsely, but I doubt that, many of them might take the time to do that. It just goes to show how highly that they viewed y'all's dad. It's just so amazing.
Well, I think the cool thing about country music is that they do have a better sense of history, and they are a lot more reverential of history. We've met some of the modern country artists, and they're just as they're nice and complimentary and everything, just like you would expect. We met Dwight Yoakam, and he was he was really, really nice and genuine to us. So yeah, I think it's part of the industry. It's not what you think of as, what a lot of people think of as the music industry. That's the sense I have.
Well, even the ones we haven't met, I mean, like if you look at I think it's the 2010 CMA Awards with Brad Paisley. I mean, he did like a nice, very nice, complimentary sort of buckaroo lick, at the end of his This Is Country Music performance. It's pretty amazing.
I don't think it's that. I think it's the industry. That's what makes country music so special, is because the people are genuinely who they are. I think a lot of them are. So
I love seeing people who've not lost touch of, where they came from. People who remember and honor, people like your dad, who are the reasons why country music is what it is today. I think I remember a few years ago seeing, I think it was Toby Keith, post, some tributes to some of his favorite guitar players. I think it was him. I could be very wrong with that. Apologies if I am, but whoever it was that posted it, I'm pretty sure it was Toby Keith. Y'all's dad was one of the ones that he featured on his Instagram. And I was like, you know what? One, this restores my faith in humanity. And two, it's good to see that these people remember where they came from. And you talk about Dwight Yoakam. I think that he is one of the best examples of someone who, honors, country music history. And I think that really does make the industry special, that there are still so many people who care about that. So
that's the sense I have. I mean, we met, we obviously, Merle Haggard's from Bakersfield, and so we've had more interaction with Merle, but I can remember one time meeting him probably for the first time when I was an adult, and Bonnie Owens met us side stage, and I remember she was barefooted and she ran us out to the bus to say hello to him. And it was really interesting. And, it's just a really cool, it's sort of, familiar memory for me, because I remember her as a little kid, but I didn't see her until I was in my 20s, and it was just kind of cute and neat to see that. So
yes,
it's funny.
Well, I unfortunately, since I only have Zoom regular and not pro, just got the message that we only have 10 minutes left, which is so sad. So let's just get into some, memories of your dad. What do you remember about him? What kind of a person he was? What are some things that you think a fan would like to hear that he did, or that he liked to say? Any wisdom or anything that he said to y'all?
Well, he was very down to earth, like we said. I mean, there was a time when he was touring so much, and I was telling Vic and I were talking. It's like he was touring so much, like when they were really big, 300 days a year. And so I remember like not knowing him that well, and like when I was very young. But he would always bring us back stuff. Like one of my memories is when they got back from their Japanese tour, and he got us like these little kimonos, and he'd always like put on his boots and stomp around. He was always good about stuff like that. We have like little notes that he wrote us, when he was away, and what was going on. Make sure you take care of your mom,
And he always used to say it's the quality of the time, not necessarily the amount of time. And he wasn't touring as much when we were older, but he was still engaged in our sports and came and did stuff with us. And I remember going to the studio a few times and talking to Red Simpson, and just simple things like that you don't think are special, but they're special. I remember when Buck got that Moog system. I think it's a early computer system. And
oh my gosh,
I remember my dad saying, "This is so expensive. It's crazy expensive," when he had it. And he brought us to the studio just to see it. So
oh wow.
It was
a very special, big thing at that time. It was crazy.
It was a big thing. So, but he was really what you see. I mean, he took a lot of pictures. When they were on tour. He was sort of like one of the band's big photographers, as you know, like with Tom Brunley and my dad. I'm not sure who got who into photography, but he was an avid historian. He liked history. He was really, a genuinely good person, kind-hearted person, and what you see on film is who he was to me. So,
when we were really young, we lived on this street called Larry Street in Bakersfield, and not a very modest home, but Tom Brumley lived in that same neighborhood, and they had two boys that were our age, and so we were over there all the time. But I remember them coming home, like waiting for the bus. They had this big bus, and so it was always the bus is coming over, and they're coming back from some kind of tour. So that was like another quick memory. But I mean, he was a great dad. I mean, you could see like towards the later part of his life, he was only 32, but you could see how hard the road was on him, though. I mean, he was gaining a little bit of weight, wasn't taking this great care of himself. And so I'm sure he would have, slimmed down and all that stuff at the end. But I mean, it just takes such a toll on you. It's such a hard life. And
it was that era too, there wasn't a lot of emphasis on physical fitness and all that stuff like there is today. So it's just different. They really lived they partied a lot. They had a lot of fun, and it takes a toll on you after a while.
Right.
So.
But I mean, he did like Cub Scout baseball for us. He coached, when he was around. We had a bunch of great neighborhood friends. He wasn't just with all industry people. He was good friends with all our neighbors, and he was part of the community. So he wasn't just like sort of howling around with the band the whole time. We'd go hunting. He was a big hunter. He taught Vic and I how to dove hunt, and he liked guns.
Right.
All that stuff with them. So
it was just a regular dad who was, just like a lot of dads. He just happened his job was different. His job had him on national TV. It's crazy to think about. So
a lot of people ask us also, like, do you guys play? We don't. But he didn't want us to. He's like, you know what? Vic took lessons when he was very young, but he didn't really. He's like, I just want you guys to play sports. He couldn't play sports because his parents were so into him and his career, and I think I just want you guys to enjoy your childhood and not be on the radio when you're 6 years old. So I feel bad about it now, but I'm.
Yeah, because I mean, he played on live radio. He played the fiddle on live radio when he was like 4 or 5 years old. So
wow, that's incredible.
He was sort of, a prodigy. It's hard to do if you're not into it. He loved it, but we have a bunch of the early stuff, and you can see you've posted a bunch of it on there. He was engaged in this for a long time. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, I think that's awesome. I mean, as much as, maybe I can understand, because my mom had me in piano lessons from the time I was 5 years old, and I could never play sports in elementary school because she was scared that I was going to break my fingers, for rightly so. I mean, I pitched like correct kickball in 5th grade, but I understand where he was coming from there. But I think that, in the end, even though people like me and y'all's dad were not able to really enjoy what they viewed as being a normal childhood at that point, that we're probably grateful for, the skills that we gained from that in the end. Do y'all think that, he was grateful for what he achieved, or maybe did he wish that there's other stuff that he could have done? Obviously, like not being here for a long time, that probably has a factor in it. But what do y'all think about that?
I think he was very grateful, and I think he always just wanted to be a player, and he loved to play. My mom always says if he wasn't in the Buckaroos, he would have been a music teacher at a high school.
Right.
And that's just who he was. He was a music guy. He liked music. He liked playing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he rarely practiced, but I remember a few times when he did, and he would just pick up a guitar and he would just start playing like these great songs, and he would get such a serious look on his face. He was not messing around anytime he had a guitar. He was very dedicated to his craft, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you guys so much. We only have a couple minutes, so thank y'all so much for being here with me today. And I know that everyone is going to enjoy so much hearing these stories that you guys have told. Thank you for, continuing to keep your dad's memory alive by sharing this with people. And, I'm just so excited to be able to continue this project and hopefully, educate some more people about the kind of person that he was by sharing the stories that only you would know. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Bakersfield Redux. I had such an amazing time getting to talk to Vic and Vance Ulrich about their memories of their dad and what being in the band meant to him. I hope that you all enjoyed this conversation and that you were able to get a better sense of who Don Rich was. Join me back next time, and until then, always keep a song in your heart.